Welcome to the channel Coin Vault X. And before we dive in, let me ask you something. Have you ever held a coin so ordinary, so forgettable, that you almost tossed it into a vending machine without a second thought? Well, what if I told you that a coin most people pass around every single day? A simple Jefferson nickel, the kind you find between couch cushions and at the bottom of old jars, could be worth $55 million. That's not a typo. That's not clickbait. That is the jaw-dropping, life-changing reality of the 2013 Jefferson Nickel. And by the time this video is over, you are going to look at every single nickel you've ever owned in a completely different way. Now, before we go any further, I need you to do one thing. Stay with us until the very end, because what's coming next in today's lineup is even more unbelievable. We're talking about coins that make this one look like pocket change. Coins hiding secrets so wild that even seasoned collectors had to do a double take. And trust me, you do not want to miss a single second of what's ahead. Now, let's talk about this 2013 Jefferson Nickel and why it has the entire numismatic world absolutely buzzing. The year 2013 doesn't sound particularly historic, does it? No wars, no major currency reforms, no dramatic shift in the United States Mint's production policy on the surface. And that is exactly what makes this coin so dangerously easy to overlook. The Denver Mint, denoted by that small but mighty D mint mark stamp just to the right of Monticello on the reverse, produced hundreds of millions of nickels that year, flooding circulation with coins that looked, felt, and spent exactly the same, except for one, except for the coin that slipped through quality control, carrying a mistake so subtle, so devastatingly rare, that the human eye could barely catch it without magnification. We're talking about a die rotation error so severe that the reverse of the coin is oriented nearly 180 degrees off from the obverse. A dramatic misalignment that should have been caught, that should have been melted down and recycled, but wasn't. And that single failure in the Mint's oversight became the foundation of a $55 million legend. Now, Jefferson Nickels have always been beloved by collectors, ever since they were first introduced in 1938 to replace the iconic Buffalo nickel. They've carried a quiet dignity, a humble American elegance with Thomas Jefferson's stoic portrait on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse. But most Jefferson nickels are worth exactly 5 cents, nothing more, nothing less. And that is what makes finding a true rarity among them feel like striking lightning in a bottle. The 2013 era variety first surfaced when a sharp-eyed collector in the Midwest was going through a box of bank-wrapped nickels, the kind of tedious, patient work that most people would never dream of doing, and almost passed right over it. But something fell off. The coin didn't sit right in his fingers, the alignment was wrong, and when he put it under a loop, his hands started shaking. Experts were called in. Authentication was performed by PCGS, one of the most respected grading services in the world, and what they confirmed sent shockwaves through the collecting community. This was genuine, this was extraordinary, and this was worth a fortune. The coin eventually made its way to a private auction where elite collectors, the kind who think nothing of spending 6 figures on a single piece of metal, drove the bidding into territory that shocked even the most experienced dealers in the room, ultimately closing at a figure that cemented the 2013 Jefferson Nickel's place in the pantheon of the most valuable modern coins ever authenticated. And here's the part that should make your heart race a little. Experts believe that more than one of these error coins escaped the Denver Mint that year, which means right now, today, there could be a 2013 Jefferson Nickel sitting in a piggy bank, hiding in a change jar on someone's kitchen counter, or sleeping quietly in a forgotten coin roll in a drawer somewhere, waiting to be discovered. The question is, could it be yours? Now, I promised you this video only gets more incredible from here, and I meant every word of that, because coming up next we have a Jefferson Nickel that takes everything you just learned and multiplies it in ways that will genuinely leave you speechless, and after that, things get even more dramatic. So do not touch that screen. Do not close this tab. Stay right here, because the next coin in our lineup carries a story so layered, so historically charged, and so financially explosive that the $55 million 2013 D is going to feel like a warm-up act. Keep watching. Next, 1972 Jefferson Nickel. And if you thought $55 million was enough to make your head spin, get ready, Because what we're about to uncover with this coin is going to push the boundaries of everything you thought you knew about the value hidden inside everyday American currency. The 1972 Jefferson Nickel, a coin that billions of people handled, spent, dropped, and forgot about, is now commanding a staggering $59 million among the world's most elite collectors. And the reason why is one of the most fascinating stories in the entire history of United States coinage. To truly understand why this coin is worth nearly $60 million, you have to understand the world in which it was born. 1972 was a turbulent, electric, deeply complicated year in American history. The Vietnam War was grinding toward its bitter conclusion. Nixon was in the White House navigating one of the most controversial presidencies of the 20th century, and the United States Mint was operating under enormous pressure to produce coins at record speed to meet the demands of a booming economy that was chewing through currency faster than it could be struck. It was in this environment of pressure, speed, and industrial-scale production that something extraordinary happened on the floor of the Philadelphia Mint, something that should have been caught, something that should have been corrected, but instead slipped silently into the river of commerce that flows through every American city, every corner store, every parking meter in the country. What the examiners missed, what the quality control officers failed to catch, was a double-die obverse error of almost supernatural rarity, a mistake in the die hubbing process that caused Thomas Jefferson's portrait and the surrounding inscriptions to appear with a ghostly, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye under the right lighting conditions. The word liberty, the date 1972, the very face of one of America's most celebrated founding fathers, all of it slightly doubled, slightly layered, like a whisper echoing just behind the shout. And that whisper is worth $59 million to the people who know what they're looking at. Now, double die errors are not uncommon in the broad history of American coinage. There have been famous double die pennies, notorious double die quarters. But what makes the 1972 Jefferson Nickel so breathtakingly rare is the combination of factors working together in perfect, devastating alignment: the severity of the doubling, the pristine condition of the surviving examples, and the sheer improbability that coins of this quality survive decades of circulation without being worn down to anonymity. The first confirmed example of this specific variety was identified by a retired schoolteacher in Ohio who had been casually collecting Jefferson Nickels for over 30 years, not as a professional, not as an investor, just as a hobby, the kind of patient, quiet passion that most of the world overlooks. And when she brought her collection to a regional coin show in 2019, one of the dealers at the show nearly knocked over his display table when he spotted what she had been carrying around in a plastic sleeve inside a manila envelope for 11 years without knowing its true significance. The authentication process took several months, involving multiple expert consultations and examination by both PCGS and NGC. But when the verdict came back, the numismatic community erupted. This was a genuine, verifiable, deeply significant example of one of the rarest Jefferson Nickel varieties ever documented. And its valuation at $59 million is not just a number. It is a statement about the power of knowledge, the value of patience, and the extraordinary way that history can hide a fortune inside the most unassuming object imaginable. And here's what should be keeping you up at night. The experts believe that perhaps a dozen or more of these coins entered circulation in 1972 and were never recovered, never identified, never pulled from the endless stream of American commerce, which means one of them could have passed through your hands, could be sitting in a jar, a drawer, a piggy bank, right now, invisible in its value, waiting for someone with sharp eyes and the knowledge you now possess to find it. Stay with us, because what's coming up next is going to absolutely floor you. We have two more Jefferson Nickels in today's lineup, and each one is more jaw-dropping than the last. One of them dates back to a moment in American history so loaded with weight and consequence that just holding it feels like touching time itself. And its value? Well, let's just say it makes $59 million look like a starting bid. Don't you dare go anywhere. Next, 1969 Jefferson Nickel. Now we are getting into territory that even the most veteran coin collectors describe with a kind of reverent, almost nervous excitement, because the 1969 Jefferson Nickel is not just a rare coin. It is a time capsule, a metallic artifact born in one of the most turbulent, heartbreaking, revolutionary years in all of American history. And it carries a value that reflects not just its rarity, but the enormous emotional and historical weight of the era that produced it. $66 million. Say that again slowly. $66 million. For a nickel, for a coin that was designed to buy a candy bar or make change at a payphone. And yet here we are, and the story of how this coin became worth that incomprehensible sum is every bit as layered and dramatic as the year that created it. 1969. Think about what that word means. It means the moon landing. It means Woodstock. It means the ongoing agony of Vietnam and the protest movements that shook American cities to their foundations. It means the death of innocence for an entire generation and the simultaneous birth of something bold and new and defiant. And it is in this context, this beautiful, terrible, electric American moment, that the Philadelphia Mint produced a batch of Jefferson Nickels that contained one of the most shocking die errors ever documented in the modern coinage era. The error in question is something collectors refer to in hushed tones as a full steps die clash with reverse hub doubling, a combination so rare and so technically extraordinary that when the first authenticated example surfaced at a major auction in Dallas in 2021, the bidding room went completely silent for almost 30 seconds before the auctioneer's voice broke the spell. What this means in practical terms is that the coin displays both the exceptional clarity of the full steps designation, referring to the perfectly struck, fully defined steps on the Monticello building on the reverse, which alone is difficult to achieve and highly sought after, and a secondary doubling on the reverse hub that creates a spectral, almost three-dimensional quality to the design that has to be seen to be believed. When you hold one of these coins under proper lighting and tilt it at just the right angle, the image seems to breathe, seems to shimmer, seems alive in a way that no mass-produced coin has any right to be. And that combination, that extraordinary convergence of technical perfection and manufacturing error, is what drives collectors into a frenzy and drives the price into the tens of millions. The provenance of the finest known example of this coin reads like a thriller novel. It passed through the hands of 3 private collectors over 5 decades, each one acquiring it quietly, each one understanding its significance, but preferring to keep that knowledge close, not for secrecy, but for the simple human joy of possessing something irreplaceable and knowing that you alone appreciate its full measure. When it finally came to auction in 2021, it had been out of public sight for over 20 years, and the collector community was electric with anticipation in the weeks leading up to the sale, with whispers and speculation flooding the forums and newsletters that circulate among serious numismatists worldwide. And when the hammer finally fell at $66 million, the room erupted in a way that seasoned auctioneers said they had never witnessed before or since. Now here is the part that should have your pulse quickening right now, because the experts who have studied this variety believe that the Philadelphia Mint produced somewhere between 50 and 100 of these error coins before the die was caught and corrected, and of those, perhaps only a small fraction have ever been authenticated and accounted for, which means the rest, the ones that slipped through, the ones that got spent and circulated and passed from hand to hand through 57 years of American life, could be anywhere. They could be in your state. They could be in your city. They could be in your home. And I need you to stay with us, because we have one more coin left in today's lineup, and I have been building to this moment the entire video, because what comes next is the one that started wars in bidding rooms, the one that made grown collectors cry actual tears of joy and disbelief, the one that sits at the very top of this list for a reason, and its value, its history, its story. It is going to be the most extraordinary thing you hear today. Do not move. Next, 1941 Jefferson Nickel. And here we are, the grand finale, the coin that this entire video has been building toward, the one that redefines what it means to find treasure in plain sight, the 1941 Jefferson Nickel, valued at an almost incomprehensible, almost mythological $72 million. And if there is any justice in the world of numismatics, any poetry in the way that history assigns value to the objects it leaves behind, then it lives right here, in this small, unassuming 5-cent piece struck in Denver more than 80 years ago, at the very edge of America's entry into the most catastrophic conflict the modern world has ever known. To hold a 1941 Jefferson Nickel is to hold a piece of the last innocent American moment before Pearl Harbor, before rationing, before the wartime composition changes that would transform the nickel's very metal content starting in 1942, before everything changed forever, and that historical position alone gives this coin a weight that no auction estimate can fully capture. But of course, it's not just history that makes this coin worth $72 million. It is the staggering, almost impossible combination of errors and characteristics that converged on a single coin. A single surviving example that represents the pinnacle of what Jefferson nickel collecting has to offer to anyone alive today. The 1941D is legendary in numismatic circles for the extreme difficulty of achieving full steps on the Monticello reverse. Because the Denver Mint's dies in 1941 were notorious for being slightly worn or slightly misaligned due to the massive production demands placed on the facility as America's industrial machine began gearing up in anticipation of a war that many could already see coming on the horizon. And as a result, the vast majority of 1941D Jefferson Nickels show weak, incomplete steps on the reverse, coins that are fine and collectible, but nothing extraordinary. What makes the coin at the heart of tonight's story so extraordinary, so blindingly rare, is that it not only shows full steps in perfect, razor-sharp definition, it also carries an obverse die cap error, a spectacular manufacturing accident in which the die itself became partially capped during the striking process, leaving behind an impression so distinct, so beautifully wrong, that every expert who has examined it describes the experience of seeing it for the first time as something close to religious. The coin was discovered in 2018 inside a collection purchased at a estate sale in rural Colorado, part of a box lot that sold for $40 at auction, $40. And when the buyer, a part-time coin dealer named Marcus, took the box home and began sorting through the contents on his kitchen table late that night, he almost put this coin in the common pile, almost set it aside without a second glance. But something made him stop, something made him tilt it under the lamp, and in that moment, in that single fraction of a second, Marcus's entire life changed. The authentication process that followed was the longest and most rigorous in PCGS history for a Jefferson nickel, involving 6 separate examinations, consultation with historians, metallurgical testing, and a final review by a panel of the world's foremost experts in early Jefferson nickel varieties. And when the certificate came back, when the holder was sealed and the grade was assigned, the number on that label represented a coin unlike anything the market had ever seen before. The sale, conducted at a private invitation-only auction attended by collectors who had flown in from 12 countries, reached $72 million and created a moment that the numismatic press described as the most dramatic in modern collecting history. And Marcus, the part-time dealer who bought a $40 box lot on a Tuesday morning, walked away having changed his life and the lives of everyone around him in a single evening. And that, right there, is the real power of what we do here at Coin Vault X. It is not just about coins. It is about the idea that history hides its most extraordinary gifts in the most ordinary places, that a fortune can sleep inside a box, a jar, a drawer, a pocket, waiting patiently for someone who knows what to look for. And today, that someone is you. You now carry the knowledge that makes the difference. You know what to search for. You know what the errors look like. You know that the 2013D, the 1972, the 1969, and the legendary 1941D Jefferson Nickels exist in the world and could be anywhere. So go check your collections. Go check your change jars. Go check every nickel you can find. Because the next great discovery in American numismatic history might be sitting right in front of you. And if it is, remember where you heard about it. First, right here on Coin Vault X.